Hello and welcome. I'm Uday Pratap Singh. You're joining us on NewsX. Our big focus this hour, days after Prime Minister Narendra Modi met his Canadian counterpart Mark Carney during the G7 summit, signaling a huge diplomatic reset. Canada's top intelligence agency, the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, has officially made a public disclosure for the first time ever that Khalistani extremists continue to use Canadian soil as a base for promoting, fundraising and planning acts of violence, primarily targeting India. Since several years, India has been raising concerns over Khalistani extremists operating from Canadian soil, but Canada had largely turned a blind eye towards this issue. However, now Canada's own intelligence security has confirmed what New Delhi has long maintained. Canada has become a safe haven for anti-India elements. Even more telling, this is the first time the term extremism has been officially used by Canada in relation to the Khalistanis. The report noted that since the mid-1980s, the politically motivated violent extremism threat in Canada is manifested primarily through Canada-based Khalistani extremists. This comes a day after PM Modi and his Canadian counterpart Mark Carney agreed to take calibrated steps to restore stability to the relationship and decided to restore high commissioners to each other's capitals. The CSIS admission is a long overdue acknowledgement of this threat. Live with us to discuss this further is Ambassador Bhashpati Mukherjee, former diplomat. We also have Sanjay Lazar, CEO, Aviala's Consultants, live with us. Professor Madhav Nalapat, Editorial Director of the Sunday Guardian, joins us live. Major General Gigi Dwivedi, Strategic Affairs Expert, is also with us on the broadcast. Ambassador Mukherjee, let me begin with you first. This, of course, is a big admission by this report by CSIS. How do you view the timing of it, Ambassador Mukherjee, and the explosive contents?
The meeting, the report comes at a very timely time because there is a contradictory report which has also come out and which is in today's media and all the newspapers that Canadian intelligence feels that India is interfering in Canada's internal affairs. So these are contradictory strains coming from two sections, I presume, of either Canadian intelligence or the Canadian government. One which perhaps is more aligned with the Trudeau style of working with India, and the other with the new, much more pragmatic, much more pleasant, I must say, I heard him on his opening remarks at the G7, and appears to be a warm individual and who does not carry the same kind of Khalistani baggage on his back as his predecessor did. The exchange of high commissioners is a very important step. I'm told that it's going to be accompanied eventually by some restaffing, by setting up of a joint working group on counter-terrorism, very similar to the ones which we have, for instance, with the European Union. We have a separate one with France. We have a separate one with the United Kingdom. We also have one with the United States. It would be very important to set up this joint working group. Normally, such joint working groups include representatives from the IB, our intelligence sleuths, diplomats, etc. And it also involves information sharing so as to prevent a possible terrorist attack, usually in India. But for that matter, I have chaired some of these JWGs when I was in service, and it is equally valuable for the Western partners. So this is very important, and the fact, as you correctly pointed out, that the word extremism has been used is a strong signal. Let's not forget that the person who was responsible in the Trudeau government for bringing the Indo-Canadian bilateral relationship to its lowest pitch ever, he lost his seat. He's out of politics. He's no longer president of that party, which is actually a Khalistani party. So I do think that the Canadian relationship is on the upswing. I have heard that we are planning to send an outstanding officer as High Commissioner who is very well aware of Canadian affairs. I look forward to that. Our last High Commissioner had a horrendous time and had to leave Canada secretly because they were trying to arrest him, which is against all diplomatic norms and protocols. I sincerely hope that my colleague in MEA, who will be named and who will be sent, I hope and pray that he does not have such a harrowing experience and that he is able to function as an ambassador. I hope that our consul generals there will not be given death threats as they were given earlier. I do hope that the kind of disgusting rallies which were mimicking Mrs. Indira Gandhi's assassination are not held anymore in Canada. with these kind of measures, then and then only can we say, Uday, that the Indo-Canadian relationship is now reached a new level, a new dimension. And in this, I have to say that I must thank President Trump, because it was President Trump, by threatening to annex Canada and make it USA's 51st or 52nd state, I can't quite recall, made the Canadians realize that their overdependence on Canada for defense and business is not good for Canada, and made them understand that they need to reach out to emerging countries like India. And they have done a complete change in their foreign policy. In fact, never ever has the Canadian US relationship been at a greater low than now under President Trump. Uday.
Sanjay Lazar, Canada intelligence report, of course, exposes these Khalistanis, exposes how so far their establishment has given them a safe haven, how their soil has been misused completely for a nefarious purpose. Could we expect action finally taken after this report so openly has exposed what has happened so far?
Well, Uday, there are a couple of things. Before I, carry on to answer what you said, this was really expected because there's been a lot of backroom diplomacy going on between the Carney government and India, even prior to his election when he was temporary prime minister. So we did expect, the G7 would yield results. We also do expect a trade deal and the high commissioners coming in the near future. And the CSIS report, Ambassador rightly pointed out that the CSIS report comes at a very timely juncture. But if you read it, it's not very complimentary to India. Because in one section, it talks about the Khalistani terror. In the second section, it talks about India intervening and, foreign interference in the same country as a result of Pakistan and Khalistani terrorism. Now, there has to be a definition. CSIS has known this all along. CSIS, as you remember, had destroyed its own tapes for the Kanishka bombing. It's had a nefarious run with all its moles within the Khalistani organization. So I expect a lot more to come out of this. I do expect that India will lean quite heavily on the government of Canada to yield more results. Because where do you draw the line? What is foreign interference? If some group of terrorists in that country is planning to bomb my country and I intervene to stop it, is that foreign interference? If your own country is not doing anything about it. So therefore, I do expect, like the ambassador said, a more pragmatic approach with this government. Mark Carney is a very balanced individual, and it's a pleasure to see him interacting with our government and the other ministers, etc. And absolutely right. Had Trump not bowled that googly, we may not have been here today. He's bowled a no ball with the Pakistani Munir sitting in his house. I think it's just going to go from bad to worse, and probably Canada will become a great trading partner for India. It will serve both Mark Carney's government as well as us. But I'd also like to take this chance. I'm in Ireland for the 40th anniversary in Cork of Kanishka, and the Mark Carney government is sending his second senior most cabinet minister to attend it. The Irish Prime Minister is coming himself. I'd like to see if the Indian government sends somebody senior or is just continue to pay lip service to Kanishka bombing and pull it out every time they need a card against Canada or Khalistan. So I'd like to use your channel to make this comment. I've tweeted about it as well. I think it's been shameful that no representative of the Indian government, senior representative, has come for the last 20 years. So that's what I have to say about it. Thanks, Uday.
Professor Nalapat, is this no surprise that this report has come after this meeting? Do you also believe that this report's contents are perhaps, part of the Canada 2.0 that we're seeing, the reset in ties that has happened now under Mark Carney after he has taken over? Is that why suddenly this report has exposed what we knew all along? Or is it too early to say?
Look, Uday, the fact is, it is very clear that Mark Carney is an individual who respects truth, who respects facts. Justin Trudeau, unfortunately, did not respect the truth, did not respect the facts that India provided. And I'm quite certain that India is providing a huge amount of evidence about the activities of these Khalistani terrorists, and that would have also helped, I'm sure, in the preparation of that particular section of the report. Yes, I mean, I mean, the report may be a mixed bag by India's concern, but I quite agree with Sanjay. It's not foreign interference when you basically try and see what kind of terrorists are operating there who are causing mayhem in India. It's not foreign interference at all. It is justified recourse to security. And I'd like to say that I do believe a reset has happened. I do believe Mark Carney is very different from Justin Trudeau, and I think we should not expect him to move the whole way immediately. But he's got a term ahead of him. And my point is, I think he's made an extremely good start. And I would say the meeting between him and Prime Minister Modi was instrumental in ensuring this kind of a start. And clearly, the signaling to Canada that its own intelligence agency is warning that the base of extremists, their language, is using Canada as a base for operations and for fundraising. Again, not my language, their language. I think it's very, very welcome, as has correctly been said, 40 years after the Kanishka bombing, which, by the way, still remains unresolved by the RCMP. So I have been very heartened by this, and I think it's a very valuable result of the meeting. And I had mentioned earlier that even this particular reset of India-Canada relations would have made the entire trip of Prime Minister Modi worthwhile. But there were other, of course, very other achievements that he did. But I'd like to say that I do see a reset. I do see Mark Carney behaving in a completely different manner from his predecessor. And that's because Mark Carney has no baggage. Justin Trudeau appeared to have a made in China bag with him. And unfortunately, that I think made in China bag he liked very much, and he was attached to it. So, but Mark Carney has no bag attached, no strings attached to him. I mean, no country except Canada can claim any, any kind of influence over Mark Carney. Of course, he was the governor of the Bank of England, and that is a testament to his prowess in banking. But I'd like to point out again, Uday, I think it's a very welcome development. I think we should really be happy about it. And I think the fact that after so many years, 40 years after Kanishka, the Canadian intelligence brief has admitted that Khalistanis are using Canada as a base of operations and as a base of terror funding. I think it's very welcome news, and I would say we should regard that as a very good beginning to the reset. Thank you.
Major Aldividi, what do you make of the contents of this report by CSIS, this expose? Do you link it directly to the reset in ties, Major Aldividi? Also, what do you believe now the follow-up steps should be by the Canadian administration to this report? This report is out for a reason. It's showing what's happening on Canadian soil. What should be done next?
Well, Uday, it's ironic that this report has come and acknowledged the fact that the Khalistani extremists are operating from Canadian soil. And this has been happening for last 4 decades. I can give you some ground perceptions because I belong to Punjab. And during Punjab militancy, I was deployed as a major company commander on the Indo-Pak border in the area of Amritsar. And we saw that kind of funds that are flowing. And what was the source? Source was Canada. It was flowing from Canada through Pakistan, and all kind of political support was there. So therefore, there was no evidence required. It was only the acceptance of the fact by the Canadians. And I think the good sense has prevailed ultimately, which is good for the relation between the two countries. The second point is there is a political architecture change in Canada because Trudeau was dependent upon guys like Jagmeet Singh, who were heading the National Democratic Party. And he had some compulsions. of course, he had sympathy towards these Khalistani elements, but he was also drawing a lot of political support from guys like Jagmeet Singh, and which is not the case because today the political architecture under Carney is different. The third point is we also need to, clean up our home base because there is a deeply embedded Khalistani elements in Punjab, and they try to raise the head with the kind courtesy Pakistan. So that end also has to be managed because otherwise that we will not be able to eradicate these Khalistani elements. I think government has to come very firm on the home front because this network it does show up off and on. And case in point, in the both the Kisan rallies, a lot of funds flowed from Canada through the Khalistani extremists. So therefore, we need to also tidy up this. Of course, the visit by Prime Minister has given the right impetus and ultimately ensured that this fact comes out. Though, of course, G7 summit was watered down, but I think big take was the reset of relations between India and Canada. And I'm sure that this will now be on a different trajectory, which is good for the both countries. At the end, I would like to say that this is, diplomacy is ongoing process. It doesn't actually, one event doesn't reset it. We have to work upon it. It's a very laborious process. And I also, having put on the diplomatic hat for a couple of years, can vouch that this process has to be nurtured, taken forward, and a lot of groundwork is required to reset the relation at the level that was there before 2023. Uday.
Yes, indeed. And are we hopeful, though, that that will happen? Are we hopeful, though, Sanjay Lazar, that that will happen in the next few, weeks and months by Canada, if it is indeed, sincere to take relations to where they were earlier? Surely this is something that must be done by them. I mean, yes, we need trade with Canada, but we need action too.
Absolutely, Uday. And I have no doubt in my mind that Canada needs the trade as much as we need the action, and they're going to find a balance. I do believe that Mark Carney has acted really significantly in a couple of spots, even before the G7. Most important, his cabinet. If you look at his cabinet, he's rid the Liberal Party's top echelon of the Khalistani faces that used to be there. He's brought a lot of, it shouldn't be correct me saying he's brought a lot of pro-Hindu Canadian faces there. He's brought a lot of Asian Canadian faces who are not Khalistani. That's one aspect. The second is he's signaled that they want trade. So he's actually taken Pierre Poilievre's charter and started using it and promoting it. Now he's spoken of Khalistan. I do believe it's going to happen. The complete reset will take 6 months to 2 years probably, but we will see ties not as good as previously, perhaps as good as during Stephen Harper's time. So we're going to see really very high quality ties in the medium to long term, and I'm very confident of this Indian government and of course the current Canadian government. Thank you, Uday.
Yes, let me quickly go back to Ambassador Mukherjee and Professor Nalapat as well. Ambassador Mukherjee, to you first. As you were saying, there is still a part of the dispensation which is loyal to Trudeau, which is loyal to that kind of thought. How big a challenge then is this reset going to be? There have been attempts to sabotage it, but that didn't deter Carney from having this meeting with Modi, issuing him the invite actually to come to the G7 summit in the first place, and then go ahead and have a very positive bilateral and reset ties. There were those who didn't want it, but it has happened. Does that make you optimistic then that this, people of the dispensation who you were claiming earlier are still loyal to the Trudeau philosophy and thought, aren't going to come out top?
I am optimistic because the Canadian Prime Minister telephoned us, our Prime Minister, and given these circumstances of the G7 summit and the almost farcical exit of Donald Trump after snubbing Emmanuel Macron, who suggested that perhaps he was going back to organize a ceasefire, the manner in which he wrote in his social media post, this is not how the President of the United States writes about the President of France. I do think that all these developments have caused a rethink in the Canadian establishment on both sides, both parties. And as Sanjay, I hope you forgive me because you look much younger than me, so I'll call you Sanjay. So as Sanjay correctly pointed out, the establishment still has a fringe group that will support Khalistan, exactly the way how in United States there is a fringe group that constantly tries to hyphenate India with Pakistan. These are challenges that we will have to take in our stride. The important thing is that the Khalistani movement politically has been deeply damaged. Even in Vancouver, the Sikhs in Vancouver and the large Hindu population in Vancouver, that includes my own younger sister, they have fought back strongly against these attempts to promote extremist violence or another partition of India, the state of Khalistan in Punjab. This is now not on the agenda of the Canadian government, and the Canadian government is no longer domestically obliged to agree with this man who lost his seat. Under those circumstances, I do believe that Mike Carney, who struck me at the G7 summit when I heard his opening remarks as an extremely sensible man, I hope that he has a good mandate. I hope he will deliver. I think they will deliver because the Indo-Canadian relationship goes back for decades, and it was a vibrant business partnership, people-to-people partnership. We had all kinds of things going on in Canada, and except for the crash, the plane crash, which has just been referred to, I think never ever did we come to a situation where Trudeau was saying we are worse than China, we are interfering in the internal politics. He was actually treating India like an enemy country, and that is incomprehensible. So I would completely agree with General Dwivedi when he says that this is a time to give diplomacy a chance, also build up business corporate interests, perhaps invite Mark Carney at an early date to India, given the kind of support and spotlight that we Indians are so good in organizing, whether it is the ceremonial salute in Rashtrapati Bhavan or the manner in which we organize state visits. We organize state visits in a manner which very few countries can. And if we do that for Mark Carney, I think he will be flattered, and he's not vain like Trump. Trump needs to be flattered 24/7. But every male, I'm sorry to say that for the males in my panel, every male is susceptible to a little bit of flattery. And what's wrong with that? We should invite him. We should make him feel very welcome. We should take him around India. He should see what kind of a great country it is. And I think we are definitely on the right foot, because in any case, Uday, where we had reached was rock bottom. The next step was only breaking of the relationship. There was nothing left with the Indo-Canadian partnership under Trudeau. We had reached completely rock bottom diplomatically. I mean, my co-panelists may wish to comment on this one. Thank you.
All right, let me in fact, also draw back in Professor Madhav Nalapath. Professor Madhav Nalapath, quick last word to you on, of course, the fact that the sooner Canada realizes that these Khalistanis are not an asset for them, the better it is. They are planning violence. This is violence which will sting Canada as well. Again, what we've always said about Pakistan, if they raise snakes in their backyard, those snakes will come and bite them too. Canada must also realize this, isn't it, Professor Nalapath? The voters certainly have, which is why Khalistani supporters like Jagmeet Singh lost and lost humiliatingly in these elections. It's time the rest of Canada also realizes that.
Look, Uday, let me remind the viewers and everybody that it's not just a question of extremism against India. There has been a flourishing of the drug culture, the narcotics culture. Now, the use of narcotics, let's say soft drugs, recreational drugs, so-called, has now spread among the young Canadian population, so that the future of Canada has become almost impossible to disengage from narcotics. At the same time, you have a booming Hawala trade, and you have a booming trade in all kinds of other illicit activities. And you have gangs, not just Indian gangs, but ethnically other groups as well. All kinds of gangs. I mean, other groups. For one group, for example, in East Asia, a very large country, they specialize in gangs, and a lot of those gangs were freely operating in Canada under Justin Trudeau. The RCMP, for whatever reason, was forced to turn a blind eye to them, as it turned a blind eye to the Kanishka crash. But I want to say that Mark Carney understands that Canada faces ruin if it goes down the path of narcotics, if it goes down the path of currency, hawala trade, and that being so, he's a very sensible person. He has been entrusted very sensible jobs, and so far he's done outstandingly in every job that he's been entrusted. But I'd like to point out, Uday, that it's important that we clean our backyard also of some snakes, people involved in smuggling, people involved in narcotics, people involved in the hawala. We need to really move against them as well. We have been doing so in a very big way, especially under Modi 3.0. That supercharging by Modi 3.0 has got to continue, because frankly, this menace has to be eliminated, not just diminished, but eliminated from the soil of Bharat.
All right. My thanks to all of our guests for joining us. We've run totally out of time. Let's slip into a very short break. Much more on the other side.